What would you do if you could predict the deaths and darkest fates of those around you? In the bustling streets of Ibadan, a young boy cursed with the power to see the future is haunted by visions of tragedy he cannot stop. But when he foresees the brutal death of his best friend and a sinister force emerges from the shadows, he is thrust into a deadly game of fate, betrayal, and secrets buried deep in his family's past. As time runs out, he must face the ultimate question: is it a gift to see the future, or a curse that will destroy him? The market was alive with the chatter of haggling voices, the sharp aroma of freshly fried akara mixing with the earthiness of dried fish. Tate stood in the middle of the bustling crowd, his heart pounding as he looked at the face of the man selling roasted plantains. The vision hit him suddenly, vivid and jarring. Blood. Screams. The same man's lifeless body sprawled across the dusty road. Tate. Stop standing like a statue. Take this money and buy pepper. Mama Tinu's voice snapped him back to reality. Her hands were rough from years of pounding yam and scrubbing laundry, but her love for Tate softened her tone. Yes, more, he mumbled, his feet dragging as he tried to shake off the image. But the vision lingered like the aftertaste of bitter leaf soup. Tate wanted to warn the man, to shout and tell him not to cross the road later that afternoon. Yet he knew better. The last time he tried to stop a death, people called him Omo-I, child of the spirits. Some said he was cursed, others avoided him like rotten meat. Instead, Tate dropped the money into the pepper seller's hand, feeling the weight of the man's impending death in his own chest. As he walked back to Mama Tinu, he whispered a silent prayer for the man, a prayer he already knew wouldn't change anything. Mama Tinu stood at the edge of the market stall, her wrapper tied tightly around her waist. Her brows furrowed as she noticed Tate's distant expression. "What is wrong with you, my son? You look like you have seen a ghost." "Nothing, Ma," Tate replied, forcing a smile. He knew his mother worried enough. Ever since Papa Tate passed away, life had been an unending hustle for her. But Mama Tinu wasn't fooled. She bent down slightly to meet his eyes. "Tate, if there's something you're hiding from me, you better talk now. Don't let me hear it from someone else." "It's just the heat," Tate said, shrugging. "I'm fine." Mama Tinu gave him a long look but didn't push further. "Let's go home. These tomatoes won't cook themselves." On their way back, Tate couldn't shake the foreboding feeling in his stomach. The streets of Ibadan, usually alive with vibrant colors and laughter, felt heavier today. As they walked past the mosque, he heard a familiar voice. "Tate. Wait." Bolu, his best friend, ran up to him, a wide grin on his face. Bolu always had a way of lightening Tate's mood, but today, even his laughter couldn't cut through the darkness. "Bolu, I'm not in the mood," Tate said, his voice lower than usual. "You're never in the mood these days. What is it? That thing you see in your head again?" Bolu's question was casual, but his eyes showed concern. He was one of the few people who didn't treat Tate like an outcast. Tate hesitated, then nodded. "I saw something. The roasted plantain man at the market. He's going to die today." Bolu's expression turned serious. "And you're just going to let it happen? What can I do?" Tate's voice cracked. "The last time I tried to stop something like this, it only made things worse." Bolu grabbed his friend's shoulder. "Tate, one day you're going to have to face this gift. Or curse, or whatever it is. If you can see the future, maybe you're meant to change it." "Maybe," Tate said, looking at the dusty horizon. But deep down, he wasn't sure. And with every vision, the weight of what he couldn't do pressed harder on his young shoulders. Later that evening, Tate heard the news. The roasted plantain seller had been hit by a car. People at the market whispered in hushed tones, recounting how they'd warned him to stay off the road, how he'd laughed it off. Tate's stomach churned as guilt and helplessness swallowed him whole. Mama Tinu's voice broke his thoughts. Ted, come and eat. You've been quiet since we came back. But Ted couldn't eat. His mind was already racing to the next vision, the next death he would see but couldn't stop. And as the stars blinked into existence above Ibadan's skyline, Ted wondered if he would ever find peace, or if his gift would eventually destroy him. The next morning, the sun's golden rays filtered through the gaps in the wooden shutters, casting stripes of light across Ted's room. He lay on his mat, eyes wide open, replaying yesterday's events in his mind. The roasted plantain man's face haunted him, but there was something else, something new. A knock at the door jolted him upright. Ted, are you still sleeping? Mama Tinu called out. I'm awake, Ma, he answered, quickly getting to his feet. As he stepped out into the main room, the familiar smells of fried yam and eggs greeted him. His mother was already bustling around, her energy seemingly endless. Eat quickly, she said, not looking up. Bolu came earlier, said he'll be waiting for you by the field. Ted's chest tightened. He wasn't sure if he wanted to see Bolu after their conversation yesterday, but he knew he couldn't avoid him forever. He ate in silence, the food tasting like ash in his mouth, and then headed out to meet his friend. The field was alive with children's laughter, the slap of rubber slippers against the ground, and the occasional shout of a street vendor. Bolu stood under the shade of a mango tree, tossing a small rock between his hands. Ted, you're late, Bolu said, smirking. But his smile faded when he saw the serious expression on Ted's face. What now? I saw another vision, Ted said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. It's about someone close to us. Bolu's eyes widened. Who? Ted hesitated, his throat dry. It's you. Bolu froze, the rock slipping from his hand and landing with a dull thud in the dirt. Me? He whispered, his voice trembling. What do you mean, Ted? Ted looked away, his chest tight with guilt and fear. I saw you, lying on the ground, covered in blood. He swallowed hard, trying to steady his voice. Something bad is going to happen, Bolu. Bolu's face paled, but then he forced a shaky laugh. Oh, Ted, stop playing with me. This one isn't funny. I'm not joking. Ted snapped, the intensity in his voice silencing Bolu. I don't know when or how, but it felt close, like it could happen today. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sounds of the field, laughter, shouts, the rustle of leaves in the breeze, felt distant, like they were in another world. So, what do we do? Bolu finally asked, his voice barely audible. I don't know, Ted admitted, his fist clenched. That's the problem. I see these things, but I can't stop them. Every time I try, his voice cracked. It never works. Bolu placed a hand on Ted's shoulder, his usual bravado gone. Maybe we can outsmart it. If you saw me in a specific place, then I just won't go there. Ted frowned, considering the idea. You were near a big building. The one with the red sign by the junction. Bolu nodded. Okay, easy. I'll stay far away from there. But deep down, Ted wasn't convinced it would be that simple. The visions always came true, no matter what he tried. Later that day, Ted found himself restless. Bolu had promised to stay close to home, but Ted couldn't shake the feeling that fate was already in motion. The Onis followed him like a shadow as he helped Mama Tinu with chores, his mind replaying the vision over and over. By mid-afternoon, the air in Ibadan had grown heavy, the promise of rain lingering in the grey clouds above. Ted decided to check on Bolu, just to be sure he was safe. He walked briskly to his friend's house, only to find Bolu's younger sister sitting on the front step. Auntie Sod said Bolu went out, she said, her tone casual. What? Ted's heart sank. Where did he go? I think he said something about buying something at the market. Ted didn't wait to hear the rest. He took off running, his feet pounding against the dirt road as his pulse raced. The market. It was near the junction with the building from his vision. The streets blurred as he pushed himself faster, dodging bicycles and vendors carrying trays of goods. By the time he reached the market, he was gasping for breath, his eyes scanning the crowd desperately. And then he saw him, Bolu, standing by a fruit stand, laughing as he haggled with the seller. Relief washed over Ted for a brief moment, but it quickly turned to dread. Across the street, a delivery truck was barreling toward the junction, its brakes screeching. Bolu! Ted screamed, his voice cutting through the market noise like a blade. Bolu turned, confusion on his face, just as the truck swerved to avoid a motorcyclist and careened onto the sidewalk. Time seemed to slow as the truck clipped the edge of the stand where Bolu had been standing moments before. Bolu jumped back, falling to the ground as crates of fruit scattered everywhere. Ted ran to his friend, his heart pounding in his ears. "Are you okay?" he asked, helping Bolu to his feet. Bolu nodded, his face pale. "I think so." The driver of the truck climbed out, shouting apologies as a small crowd gathered. Ted's knees felt weak as he realized how close it had been. But as he looked at Bolu, relief mixed with confusion. The vision hadn't played out exactly as he'd seen. For the first time, something had changed. And Ted couldn't help but wonder, had he finally managed to alter fate, or was this just the beginning of something even more dangerous? That night, Toda lay on his mat, staring at the wooden ceiling above him. His heart was still racing from the day's events, his mind replaying the scene with Bolu over and over. The vision hadn't been wrong, but somehow, Bolu had survived. It was the first time Ted had seen a glimmer of hope in his ability, if it could be called that. But it also left him with questions he couldn't answer. Why did this vision allow for change, when all the others hadn't? Was it something he did differently? Or was it something else entirely? As he drifted into a restless sleep, another vision struck him. It started with darkness. A cold, suffocating blackness that seemed to press against his skin. Then, a faint light appeared, revealing a figure standing in the distance. It was Bolu, but his face was obscured, his features twisted in pain. "Help me," Bolu's voice echoed, distorted and chilling. Around him, shadows moved, clawing at the edges of the light. And then Ted saw it, a faint, glowing mark on Bolu's chest, pulsating like a heartbeat. The light flickered and died, plunging everything into darkness once more. Ted woke with a start, sweat pouring down his face and his breath coming in short gasps. What had he just seen? This wasn't like the other visions. It felt deeper, more menacing, as though something was actively reaching out to him. And the mark on Bolu, it was unlike anything Ted had ever witnessed before. He sat up, his hands shaking as he tried to steady himself. The air in the room felt heavy, as if the vision had left a residue behind. For the first time, Ted felt a presence, a sinister force lingering just out of sight. The next morning, Ted didn't bother with breakfast. He threw on his slippers and bolted out of the house, heading straight for Bolu's home. When he arrived, Bolu was sitting under the mango tree in their compound, peeling an orange. He looked up and grinned. "Ted, you're early. What's the rush?" Ted didn't answer right away. He grabbed Bolu's arm and pulled him aside, away from the ears of nosy neighbors. "I had another vision," he said, his voice low. Bolu's grin faded. "What did you see?" "It was you," Ted said, his chest tightening. "You were in darkness, and there was something on you. A mark. It was glowing, like it was alive." "A mark." Bolu's brow furrowed. "What does that even mean?" "I don't know," Ted admitted, frustration bubbling in his voice. But I think it's connected to what happened yesterday. That truck, it wasn't just an accident. What are you saying? Bolu asked, his tone wary. Ted hesitated, the words catching in his throat. I think something is after you, Bolu. And I don't know if I can stop it. Thanks for watching. Stay updated for part 2 of this story, which will drop soon. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Turn on your notification bell so as soon as new videos drop you will be among the first to know. By liking and subscribing you enable us to continue producing more videos. Thank you. Now go ahead and click on our next thriller video.